I would like to now introduce Dr. Mary Wakeham, founder and Chief Executive Officer of Refuge4Pets. I will just say that this talk is going to talk about some sensitive subjects regarding domestic abuse. So I would like to just put that out as a warning. So Mary has had over 15 years practice experience working in the domestic abuse sector, including founding Refuge4Pets in 2017. And this is driven by her passion to enable freedom from domestic abuse for all victims, survivors, both people and animals. She's also an academic researcher, which we're going to talk about in a bit, with a specialism in the dynamics and implications of animal abuse in the context of domestic abuse, more specifically animal abuse as a strategy for coercive control. I couldn't learn that off by heart, apologies, I tried. Thank you and welcome to the National Human-Animal Bond Day. How are you?
Good, thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome, and it is a sensitive subject, so I do appreciate you coming and discussing this. Could you give us a little bit of your background? It says that you worked in that sector. How did you come to initiate Refuge4Pets?
It's an area that's really close to my own heart. And in, I think, about 10 years ago, I started working as what we call an independent domestic violence advocate. So working with humans that are impacted by domestic abuse. And I was working in Cornwall with, high risk survivors of domestic abuse, which means either somebody's at risk of homicide or life-changing injuries because of their experiences. And I'd be working with families to try and get them to safety, and there just was no option for their animals. So people who really needed to get to safety, a lot of refuges aren't allowed to we can't take animals, have shared kitchens, living rooms, living facilities. So many of the animals that come into our service wouldn't really be able to cope in that environment as young children in refuge. So that's where Refuge4Pets came from. There was no service providing that to victim survivors. So myself and wonderful three founding trustees, we got together and that was Refuge4Pets, and we're still going 8 years later.
And you're very region specific, aren't you? Can you explain to people about that?
Yeah. So we're one of 4 specialist accredited domestic abuse animal fostering services in the UK.
Can you tell us about the other ones as well?
Yeah. So we're accredited by the Links Group, who are a national charity. They've been going for about 2 decades, longer actually. And when I say we're accredited, we all work to the same set of service standards. So the 4 services are, there's ourselves in Devon and Cornwall, so Refuge4Pets. Then you've got Cats Protection Lifeline, a very specific service within Cats Protection. They cover much of the UK.
Right.
Dogs Trust Freedom, again, very specific within Dogs Trust. They cover much of the UK. And up in Bolton, in the northwest, a wonderful project called Endeavour.
Okay, that's quite new, is it?
No, Endeavour's been going for 27 years.
Wow.
And Endeavour's, they're the longest standing animal fostering service for victims of domestic abuse.
Is that the original one?
Yeah, they started because there was a woman who had escaped domestic abuse, and she was living in she was sleeping in a stairwell with her dog because there was no refuge that could take her.
Right. Okay. Could you discuss with us the link between domestic abuse and animal abuse? Because it's something that people struggle to recognise, I think. Is there becoming more knowledge about that? Has research been done? How do people recognise and where it starts from and then where it progresses to?
So the link between domestic abuse and animal abuse is something that we've been researching since the 1990s. That research has largely happened in the United States, Canada, New Zealand. Back in 2021, I completed one of the first studies in the UK looking very specifically about animal abuse and coercive control.
Okay.
Phil Arkow, a researcher in America, put forward a great quote, and it makes sense. But when people are at risk and when people are being abused, animals are being abused, and when animals are being abused, people are at risk. there are lots of parallels between the abuse of people and the abuse of animals. So we should always think about that. If people are being abused, it's very likely that the animals in the household are being abused. And if animals are being abused, it's very likely that people are being abused.
Okay.
And animals are abused in, it's a very difficult topic. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but when we look at domestic abuse, and this is something that really came up in my research, and obviously we're here today because of the human-animal bond. For victim survivors of domestic abuse, often their animals are the only form of comfort, companionship, love that they have, because the perpetrator denies that from them.
They limit any other sort of
Yeah. Well,
relationship.
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So it might be animals that get somebody through that horrific experience. So, those animals, they're walking on eggshells, they're exposed to the domestic abuse, they're being abused. And that sense of shared experience often brings us closer with our animals as well. Animals are part of the family.
Yep.
And perpetrators will exploit that. So they will exploit that bond that we have with our animals, and they will target our animals.
Okay.
So coercive control is the thread that runs throughout domestic abuse. And perpetrators will they will set the rules of the relationship. And they will force compliance, and they will often use animals to do that. If you leave, this is going to happen to the animals.
Sorry.
So animals are very significant within the dynamics and implications of the domestic abuse.
Okay. And are vets given any sort of training as to pick up on the signs that they may see with the animals coming in that doesn't look like a natural injury? And what can a vet do with that knowledge?
Yes. So the Links Group have been working particularly in the veterinary space for a long time now. So the Links Group, when it started, is made up predominantly of vets. Over the years, we've had other professions come in, like myself from a domestic abuse background, social workers. So routinely, vets are not trained, and vet nurses, all vet teams are not trained on domestic abuse. But over the years, Links Group colleagues, Dave Martin, Paula Bowden, they have been going in and training undergraduate vets. And also we've been doing lots and lots of work with vet teams, online training, to help raise awareness about domestic abuse, how to spot the signs of domestic abuse, how to spot the signs of non-accidental injury, and how to respond.
Okay.
Because what needs to happen, and likewise, we don't train our social workers and our domestic abuse workers on animal welfare, how to spot the signs of poor animal welfare. So we need to train all professionals.
Quite seeing that there are sort of veterinary social workers coming into the frame now.
There are.
Yeah.
So my colleague Rebecca Stevens at the University of Sussex, I'm not going to say this is 100% accurate, but my understanding is she's the first qualified veterinary social worker in the UK.
Right.
And she's doing lots of research in this space.
I think it's quite common in America, isn't it? And it's coming over here now.
Yeah. And
Okay.
in Australia.
In Australia, okay.
See, what we need to be able to protect families, we need to integrate our safeguarding. So we need our veterinary teams, our animal welfare teams, our domestic abuse services, our social workers to come together to safeguard the whole family.
Right.
We all need to work together as one team.
Okay. What about schools?
Yeah.
Recognition in schools for teachers as well to pick up certain signs?
Over the years, we've had quite a few referrals from schools. And I think, what teachers is listening at other animals in the household, asking about the animals. We say to all professionals, ask about the animals. It's a great way to start conversations, because even when people are experiencing horrific things, they will light up when they talk about their animals. So with children, asking about animals, listening out for disclosures about what's happening to the animals,
Right.
and then knowing
There could
what
be little
to do.
signs for people to recognise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And talk about the research that you're involved in and what you would like to come out of that.
Okay. So back in 2021, I completed a piece of research at the University of Bristol. And that has been brilliant in terms of, so I looked very specifically at animal abuse and coercive control. I talked to 107 survivors of domestic abuse across the UK, and we've developed loads from that. So loads of training, awareness raising, speaking at different events, legislation, policy change. But in order to really bring about systemic change in how we respond to domestic abuse, seeing animals as victims of domestic abuse in their own right, how we can integrate our safeguarding, we need some really hard-hitting, impactful data.
Right.
So this research that we've literally just started this week at the University of Bristol, sadly, and we shouldn't need this research, but it's looking very specifically at what's happening to animals where there was domestic homicide and suicide.
Right.
Because absolutely horrendous, in the UK, 3 women will be murdered each week, by a partner, an ex-partner, or a family member. Men will also be murdered. Anybody can be victimised by domestic abuse, but it is a gendered crime. It does disproportionately impact women. Many children will lose their lives, and sadly, many animals will also lose their lives. So we need to understand what are the indicators,
Right.
and how can we all work together to respond to reduce harm to that whole family, the people and the animals in the household.
And if you have those indicators, who is going to know about those indicators? Who's going to be trained to pick those up? Is it teachers? Is it doctors? Who is it?
It could be anybody, because there'll be so many people in touch potentially with victims of domestic abuse. So they might be walking into our veterinary practices. Sadly, many of these animals will never get to see a vet. But, they will come into veterinary practices. They will come into GP spaces.
You were saying that they, in that situation, they don't bring them in for their vaccination, their fleas, their worms. So the people that are abusing those animals, they will make sure they don't get in front of a vet.
Quite often, as part of the dynamics of abuse, perpetrators will not allow survivors to take their animals to the vets. We see it a lot in our practice.
Right.
So many of the animals that come into our service won't have had any veterinary treatment. Okay. And it's that case of, oh, you're not spending 50 quid on that dog.
Yeah.
And because that bond we have for our animals, we want to take the best care of them. So being prevented from doing that has a real big impact, but that's what the perpetrator wants.
So sorry, I interrupted there. You were saying that, so teachers, maybe police, obviously, vets, who else? If somebody recognised signs, where would they go to, because it's a very sensitive subject, and the victim may not want to take it further.
Yeah.
So how can we help a situation where we don't know that anybody wants to take it further because of the consequences that could be?
So in the veterinary sector, so just thinking about vet teams, the whole vet team, the Links Group have produced very specific guidance for vets,
right,
all aligned with the codes of practice and all available on the website. And there's also a non-accidental injury helpline,
okay,
so that vets can get advice, because it's difficult, isn't it? What do I do? So it's very, very specific guidance and an advice line. Thinking about more of our human services, and we shouldn't have this animal-human divide. People working in schools, GP surgeries, will have had safeguarding training.
Right.
Domestic abuse will be very much part of that. So I would anticipate that they've had some level of domestic abuse training. And then we have lots of ways that we come around. So we do risk assessments. They're called dash risk assessments. Some police forces do what we call a DARA. There are questions on there about the animals.
Okay.
So it's about opening it up and being able to have that dialogue. And then depending on the outcome of those risk assessments, we would take different steps.
Okay.
So if it's a high risk situation, that victim survivor will be discussed at what we call MARAC. I mean, this is getting into quite a lot of detail. Yeah. But it will be about that whole team working together to safeguard that family. But what we've been doing, a pilot in Devon and Cornwall, we've been going to those MARACs.
Right.
So, and in those MARACs, professionals will come together. So you will have police, you will have domestic abuse services, housing teams, education, children's social care, adult social care, mental health, substance misuse services.
Right.
Lots of agencies come together to think about, okay, how can we safeguard this family? How can we reduce the risk? How can we hold this perpetrator to account? But we've been training them to say, ask about the animals, think about the animals, think about the animals and safety plans. Because what we know from my research, from all the research out there, and from our practice is people won't leave.
Right.
They can't take their animals with them. They will not leave, you know. And so that's why services like Refuge4Pets so important. And it's really important that animal services are part of those safety plans. More pet-friendly accommodation, you know, more pet-friendly emergency accommodation.
Well, Street Vet have
So
the
important.
accredited hostel scheme.
Yeah.
Because exactly what you were saying, if you are in a situation where you are on the street and you've got a choice of a room for the night without your animal, or you have to leave with no accommodation, majority of the time the people will choose no accommodation if they can't take their pet with them.
Absolutely.
So Street Vet have nearly 50, I think 50 plus now, hostels that actually will are trained to take in the pets as well. So we support them with vet care, food, equipment, etc. So I assume what we're talking about is similar.
It's very similar.
They're very similar, but it's so could you tell us a little bit about the process of when somebody is going through this? What happens to the animal in this situation, and how do you help them, and what can the public do to help?
Yeah. So all 4 of the fostering services work very similarly, and I would say we are always desperate for foster care.
Can you just name those again?
Yeah. So you've got Refuge4Pets in Devon and Cornwall. We're a very small charity. You've got Cats Protection Lifeline, who cover much of the UK, Dogs Trust Freedom, and then the Endeavour Project in the Northwest.
Thank you.
We take all animals. Obviously, Cats Protection and Dogs Trust says what they do.
Yeah.
Endeavour in the north, they take all animals apart from dogs, because Dogs Trust take the dogs.
Okay.
So how we work is we will get a referral from a family, so an individual or family. So when somebody is escaping domestic abuse, wherever they're going, they might be going to refuge, they might be going into emergency accommodation, which could be a B&B, it could be empty mobile holiday accommodation. It will be anywhere where the council puts that family.
Okay.
Most emergency accommodation, most refuges you cannot take animals. People might go and stay with friends and family to get away, but they can't take their animals for whatever reason. Anyone can refer to us. Most of our referrals come directly from survivors wanting to make a plan for their animals before they decide what they're going to do. But we also take lots of referrals from police, social workers, housing teams, domestic abuse services are our biggest referrer, and we work really closely with them. So when somebody phones our helpline, or if we phone a survivor, because we really want to try and speak to that person because they know their animals best. And we want to reassure them. You know, lots of people say to us, am I going to get my animals back? So we say, absolutely. We are just here to temporarily care for your animals. So we get all of the information. We ask them all about their animals. Sometimes it's not safe to speak to that person before they leave. Sometimes we bring in animals and we really don't know what's coming our way. So we'll try and find out as much as we can from any professionals involved. But, you know, this is the nature of what we're working with. So then my wonderful team, we are a very small team, there's 6 of us. They will make a plan, they will go out and they will collect the animals. So we'll collect animals when families come away. Because we're down in Cornwall, we're based in Devon and Cornwall, but we get referrals from all over the UK because people think, right, I want to get as far away from as possible, and people automatically think Cornwall. So we will often meet people in supermarket car parks, service stations. We might meet them at refuge, train stations. So we bring their animals in. It's very emotional. They're really at that point of crisis. We take the animals. The family go off into wherever they're going. We take the animals and we settle them in the foster home. So we don't have our own kennel and cattery space. That is an ambition of ours.
Okay.
If we have an animal that we think needs a bit of rest, or we might need to assess them a bit more, they just need to have a bit of downtime, or if we don't have a suitable foster home there and then because we've had to respond in an emergency situation, we'll place the animal into a wonderful catering or kennel that we use in our areas, private one. And just while we get that foster home sorted, animals stay in kennels and catteries very briefly. That's not what we're geared up to do. And, we can have animals for 6, 9, 12 months. So and it's important that they're in a home environment.
Mm-hmm.
So we take them into a foster home. My team spend a lot of time with our foster carers, so making sure that they feel supported. We provide all of the food.
Right.
Everything animals need, we pay for all of the vet treatment. So all of the animals that come into our service, they will see a vet within the first 14 days, sooner if they need to. And then we keep in touch with families and we give them lots of updates about how their animals are getting on. If there's children in the household, we might write to the children from the animals. Whatever they need, just because that's hearing about how their animals are doing is a really important part of their recovery. And then the best bit about our jobs is reuniting
Yeah.
people with their animals, which is absolutely
Do you get to
brilliant.
do that 100% of the time?
Not 100% of the time. So most of the time.
Okay.
So I think we've taken in, I was looking at the data, we have supported 450 families to leave since we started in 2017, late 2017. And that's just Devon and Cornwall. And we've fostered over 750 animals. And I think we reunited nearly 550.
Right.
So there are some animals that can't go home. Now, few reasons for that. Sometimes people's circumstances have changed so much. So they might have come from a very rural setting, had, working dogs perhaps, and they've ended up in a flat somewhere.
Right.
Perhaps it's not going to work for, so people have had to take that really difficult decision.
Yeah.
We see a lot of multi-pet households.
Right.
So another tactic that perpetrators will use is encouraging multiple animals to come in, because it's really hard to leave with one dog. But if you've got to leave with 4 dogs, 3 cats, 2 bearded dragons and a snake, that's overwhelming.
Is that an example?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and also we see a lot where perpetrators will not allow neutering. So we will have the conversations with survivors then. What would you like us to do? How many animals is feasible? It's not about pushing people into doing things that they don't want to, but supporting them. And then if we have to have animals with home, then we'll own that process as well.
And is it that generally the fosterer will take on that animal? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because our animals are in the foster homes for quite some time, that bond's really developed.
And you said 9 to 12 months. Is that an average?
The average is 6 months in our data, but it's really skewed with perhaps somebody might only be with us for a month. But really, it's improving.
Okay.
It's all linked to the housing crisis. So going back sort of 2 years ago, it was really taking it was really hard. I'm seeing it improving slightly. We've got a steady flow of animals going home, which is good to see.
So you mentioned before that where you are, but you can't extend what you do at the moment because you're not big enough, you don't have enough funding. How do you get your funding for what you already do? And you mentioned about veterinary fees, and that's, I assume, quite a lot of the costs involved with what you do.
Yeah. Funding is like pushing water uphill with a fork. So we started with £10,000 from the National Lottery.
Right.
And I never thought we'd still be going 8 years on. We live year to year.
Right.
So the main aim is to be sustainable in Devon and Cornwall.
Right.
Because our charity does cost a lot to run. Our veterinary bills are high. We travel the length and breadth of Devon and Cornwall weekly.
Right.
We don't have a premises. We do have staff to pay. So it's really hard going, particularly at the moment. We are funded mostly through trusts, grants, trusts and foundations, donations.
How can the public help you at this point? We can put out if there is anybody in that area that, and beyond, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
so, remotely. How could people help you achieve what you want to achieve?
I think by raising awareness about us, it's difficult times for everybody at the moment. So absolutely, if you can donate, if you can support with a regular donation, running events, dress down days at work, cake sales, everything makes a difference. But just raising awareness, because we're quite young still and we're a small charity. So we want everybody to know about us. We want survivors to know that we're there. We want them to know that there is support available. Um, and that's how we really need people to help us at the moment. Obviously, if anyone wants to write us a nice big check, that would be lovely. But that's not the reality for most people. So it's just about sharing information about our service.
I think one thing from running this day is if we can just reach some people that can help some charity.
Exactly.
And that has happened.
Yeah.
And if there are people out there that are going, do you know what, I want to do I want to raise money for a charity, but they don't know which one. Likelihood is from our website, there is about 40 charities. One will resonate with you.
Yeah.
Something will resonate with you. Maybe you've got a child that's ADHD, so you'll support an ADHD charity. Maybe somebody knows somebody who has experienced domestic abuse. This charity will resonate. So I do think this will help raise a little bit of awareness. And the other thing that I do believe is that I don't think enough people know that you exist, that this is something that is out there, and you've spoken about 4 charities already, and I don't know, so if we can raise awareness of Refuge for Pets and followers and sharing.
Absolutely. And I think it's brilliant, actually, just as charities working together.
Yeah.
Because we all support each other. And I think that's what's really nice about this sector, because we work very closely with Street Vet locally,
Right.
so they know about us because they will be working with people that need our service.
I'm sure.
So, and I think that's really, really important. But the other thing is, come on our training, so domestic abuse, and I could talk about this all day, but domestic abuse, I won't bore you. It is one of the most significant public health concerns. We hear the stats, 3.8 million people, adults experienced domestic abuse last year in England and Wales. 3.8 million just in England and Wales. That's 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men, 1 in 5 children. This is a really serious public health concern, and we need to talk about it and we need to tackle it. The government have committed to halve violence against women and girls, I'd say violence against women and children, over the next 10 years. That's going to take all of us to make the change.
That's really well said.
We need to make challenges right across our society and all come together. So I would say to anybody, come on our training as well. We do it all for free. It's all on our website. We've got lots of resources. Just knowing about the services, knowing about the local domestic abuse services, because what you will have friends, family, neighbours impacted by domestic abuse. So it's making sure people know that there's support out there and that the whole family, so animals are victims of domestic abuse too.
Which is something that your talk, I hope, will raise awareness of.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's very apt because just this last week, wasn't there was a vet that was murdered with her children as well. So it's something that's very, very raw and out there already. So you were saying, was it 1 in 3 women a month, or was it a week?
A week.
3 women a week. So it's...
And there will be many more. So there will be many more that lose their lives because of domestic abuse related suicide and just a trauma of domestic abuse. So that might play out in terms of substance misuse, developing coping mechanisms. It really is such, and it's entirely preventable, which is the sad reality.
On to brighter things. Your aspirations for your charity. You mentioned that you would like somewhere if we can reach somebody that's willing to support us, you would like to have a location.
We would.
Tell us about that.
So we need to be able to protect our future. So, and there's a few ways we need to do that. We need to protect our financial future. So by having a premises, we could, develop an earned income. So
Okay.
in different ways, we might have dog walking fields, we might do some livery, we might provide some boarding facilities. But actually, what we need is to be sure that we can take every animal that needs our help. So if we had our own premises, we know that we've got space for all animals. So we've seen a real increase in the last few years of sort of same day referrals.
Right.
So we don't know what any day is going to look like. We could get a phone call to say, this family's going today, we really need your help. So if we had our own premises, I know that I've got a space for all animals.
Okay.
At the moment, we would have to use a private boarding facility in that situation, which is brilliant. But we can't afford that. It's not, there's a cost to that.
Sustainable, yeah.
But also, we want to be able to care for those animals within our own team. We need to be able to rehabilitate these animals because they have experienced abuse, they have witnessed abuse, they have been directly abused. So my team are qualified in animal welfare and animal behaviour. We want to be the ones rehabilitating those animals, and we want our premises to be like a home from home, so that we can care for those animals in a really special way until we find suitable foster homes. Some of the animals that come in, may not be able to go into a foster home. We've seen a real increase in more traumatised animals, and we find it quite hard to find foster carers for certain types of animals. So, because of everything we hear in the media, our large bull breeds, I love large bull breeds. They're my, we shouldn't have favourites. I love all the dogs. But, if we get a referral for, 2 American bulldogs or 3 Rottweilers, it's really hard to find foster carers to take multiple dogs on certain breeds of dogs.
Imagine. Yeah.
So we need to know that we've got a safe space for them.
And a network of, I'm sure you've built up a network of people over time.
Our foster carers are amazing, and we could not do this without them. All of our foster carers across the 4 services, they are so brilliant, and we have real pockets of expertise within our foster carers. And we have many foster carers that just have animals one after the other, and they are just brilliant, and they are part of our team, and we love them. But there's so many people, all of the charities are looking for foster carers now, aren't they? Because the rescue centres are overwhelmed, overspilling, so they're looking to put animals out into homes. So there's so many organisations wanting foster carers, it's becoming increasingly hard for us to find them.
When there's a campaign or when we can get some form of press, though, there is then more people coming forward.
Yeah.
So it is about media.
It is.
It's about us all sharing the stories.
Yeah.
And that does see an increase in attention.
Cats Protection Lifeline did their Christmas campaign around this topic, their domestic abuse animal fostering service. I think it was 2 years ago, and that was brilliant.
Great.
Really, really good. And we share resources, so we work together. So they don't run in Devon and Cornwall, so they have foster carers calling, they send them to us, which is brilliant.
So you've done local press, but would you like this? Would you benefit from press further afield, or would that sort of dilute what you're trying to do in your area?
I think any press is brilliant in terms of if it's done correctly and safely and accurately to raise awareness. One of the most difficult things that we encounter is our services are totally confidential. So I can't show you the animals on our project, and if we use survivors to talk about their experiences, we have to protect their identity, and we have to protect their identity of animals in our service, because perpetrators will go to any length to get to those animals. And domestic abuse doesn't stop. We can manage risk and safety, but it never really goes away. So
but
we only ever
hear of the cases that have gone too far.
Yeah.
We don't very often hear of the cases that are going on behind closed doors.
That's one thing that prevents us is we can't sort of show you the journey, but we can show you part of the journey.
Right.
And it's a very, very compelling. But any airtime, local media, national media, just talking about it. We like going out and talking to community groups. We spend a lot of time talking to WI groups, all different groups, because it's just raising awareness, isn't it?
It is quite a sensitive subject though, isn't it? And I
Yeah.
don't think people, um, I don't know if they're comfortable talking about it because it's such a hard topic, and it's not that they're not empathetic or sympathetic with it. I think it's a difficult topic to
Well,
approach.
Yeah, and for many years, it's only within the last 3, 4 decades that we've really talked about it. So for many, many years, this is a private matter that's happened behind closed doors. We hear the term rule of thumb. That comes directly because at one point it was law that you could beat your wife with a stick, as long as it was less than the width of your thumb. Can't remember the exact detail, but you know,
Mm.
and we don't have to look too far back to some of the legislation changes, that I won't go into, but so it wasn't something that was talked about in our society. It was a matter that was left to happen behind closed doors. And it's only really in the last few decades, because of research, because of service, because of survivors coming forward and speaking, that a lot of changes happen. A lot of brilliant change, but there's a long, long way to go.
If there's anything that you would like to say to the public how they can help you now, what would it be? Would it be to share on social media? What would it be to talk? What is it that you would benefit from the general public helping you?
Sharing about our service, please go on. If you're online, please look across our social medias, share, follow us. We do try and put a lot on there, lots of different things, even just like tips. But also, if you know somebody that is experiencing domestic abuse, or for people that are, you are not on your own. There is a lot of support out there. And I think it's really important that that's what survivors are hearing. We empathise, we understand, we believe you are not on your own. We are here for you. And that if it takes somebody on average 7 times to leave, 7 attempts before somebody will successfully leave. Leaving is actually the most dangerous time. Um, so, and if it's not the time now, there's lots of times when we get referrals in and we're all geared up to go and get those animals, but it's just not the time when it comes to the day,
Right.
but it's just, we're not about
Which
judging.
must be very hard for you to know that
But you get one step closer every time. And I think by building that trust in us, really making sure that survivors knows this isn't your fault, and we are here for you and we're here to support you. That is really important. I think for all of us across the general public, just, giving that message to anybody that we think might need some support is really, really important.
I can't thank you enough for talking about this today, and I hope that people will follow and share and spread the word that Refuge for Pets is available. We've only got a couple of minutes, but has anybody got any questions? I know it's a sensitive subject, but if not, then I would refer you to go to the website, your social media, and I really appreciate and respect what you do. So thank you so much for coming and talking to the National Human Animal Bond Awareness Day, and we know that it matters. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you for having us.